Alon Matas, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so BetterHelp, Corona, online therapy. We only have 20 minutes, but I want to talk about this for an hour. What is BetterHelp? And then let's dive into why this is so relevant in March of 2020.
Sure. It's already April. So BetterHelp is the largest online counseling service worldwide. We started 6 years ago. We have a network of over 7,000 licensed therapists nationwide, and we connect people who are looking for mental health help with one of these licensed therapists based on their needs and preferences, where they can go to counseling online, pretty similar to the one they would have in a brick and mortar, but with four options of communication: messaging, which is asynchronous. You send a message to your therapist anytime you want, a little bit like email, get a response usually same day or day after, or you schedule live sessions over phone, video, or chat. We have around a little over 2 million counseling interactions every month, in normal months, and Corona definitely makes it anything but usual, as people need more, maybe need more therapy and help, given the stress, anxiety, and now even loneliness with shelter in place coming into most states, and of course the inability to actually go to see a therapist in the office, even if you wanted to.
Okay, so way too many questions. I have to go back a little bit. Now, you're not coming from the therapy world. You're not a
Right.
psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And did you even come from healthcare general in
No,
before? No.
not at all. No, I'm
How did you
coming
get
from
to build this?
I'm coming from a consumer products background of being in this space for 18 years now, of interacting with consumers on marketplaces and different kind of services. And I'm not coming from counseling. I'm not coming from healthcare. There's a whole debate about whether founders should come from the domain or from outside of the domain. Definitely lots of examples: Uber, Airbnb, and you name it, of the biggest
BetterHelp?
companies and their verticals and BetterHelp that were founded by people who came outside of the domain. There are some advantages: that completely fresh thinking, usually more line of thought that is aligned with what consumers want, rather than what the system is used to provide, and maybe convenient to the system to provide the traditional way. Obviously, we have therapists on the team, and we all the clinical stuff. I'm not making any clinical decisions whatsoever. But our concept from day one was, we wanted to create something that people actually want and people will use, because the sad reality with therapy, and that's not corona related, is it's a huge need of a lot of people, but most people actually don't use that. So if you broke your leg, or you're coughing today, you're going to see a doctor, in 90% plus of the cases. But most people who struggle with mental health, even very significant struggles, will avoid going to therapy. So you have research shows that you have around 25% at any given time has a serious mental health issue that should be addressed by a professional. But at any given time, very few of them would actually go to see a therapist. Why? Because it's expensive, it's inaccessible, it's inconvenient. I experienced this myself when
Socially
uh,
unacceptable sometimes.
there's a lot of stigma. And I experienced myself, like when I thought, maybe on the last days of my previous company before the BetterHelp came to be, I want to see a therapist, and I thought, okay, that should be easy. It was anything but easy. So it's really a very needed service, therapy as a whole, that can change people's lives. It's really amazing how people's life can change, and sometimes pretty quickly, with the help of a true professional that is trained and has the right expertise. But still, so few people actually use that. So our approach, and that may be different from approach of other companies, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, was not to disrupt therapy. It was not to say, oh, we're going to do AI, we're not going to do a bot, we're going to do a whole different way of therapy. We took the exact opposite direction. We said, we want therapy is a tried and true science that has been studied and proved over so many years. we're going to keep it as it is. It's the same therapist that you'd see in brick and mortar clinics. It's the same type of interactions and the same goals. What we're changing or what we're disrupting is the delivery mechanism. So it's the way people communicate with a therapist to make it more accessible, more convenient, and eventually also more affordable.
Okay, so I'm one of the biggest advocates I think in the world for therapy, practicing it myself with a professional, and I believe that every person in the world needs to see a therapist because it's having this objective persona that's able to help you reflect on what you're feeling and believing. I think it's a privilege that we have, and unfortunately, most people in the world can't afford it or it's not accessible. And so what you're doing is amazing, but you're also making a lot of money. I'm sure you are. Millions of, you said 2 million sessions a month, and I'm guessing I remember that. What was the last number that you shared with me? The total number of sessions that were through BetterHelp.
So far, we had around 65 million of messages, video calls, phone calls, chat
Insane.
sessions.
How do you balance this idea that you're creating a business that is, at the end of it, it's a good business. It's social good. You're helping so many people at the same time you're making money. Do you find any contradiction there? Do people challenge you on that sometimes?
There's always the notion of, oh, you're making money of people's misery, but that's, I think, common to so many professions, from doctors to mechanics.
Yeah.
Like, mechanics make money when your car breaks, and doctors make money when your body breaks, and we're
That's why people hate
or
insurance
part of mind.
companies, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's we provide a solution, so I definitely feel comfortable, especially that we make it much more affordable. But yes, mental health is a touchy topic. I think, and smarter people said it before me, that the for-profit model is, when you can make it work, is actually what brings the most value to mankind. Maybe it's a fortune, that's the way it is, but that's reality. So if you can make a sustainable business and make good at the same time, that's perfect. But we do recognize that we have, extra responsibility here, which was why, for example, we have a very, very extensive financial aid program. So if you sign up to our
Beautiful.
service and you can't afford that service, we provide financial aid in very, very steep discounts. We keep paying therapists the same. Therapists are unaware that even you may be getting financial aid, because we think that they should focus on their job, and we subsidize it. We give ton of
Wow.
free service to, when there's a time of um, nature disaster, or in the time of Corona, we also give some groups free or very discounted service. So we try to help wherever we can. But yes, we're a for-profit corporation.
Yeah.
We also need to support the therapists
No,
that
and I
we're
think it's
professional.
I think it's completely right. I mean, I completely agree with that, and I love this idea of a win-win situation, and really you're creating incentives for both groups to maximize on it. And I got to start working recently at Hippo Insurance, and I get to see firsthand a new insurance company. And just the word insurance makes some people vomit, but all of a sudden you're seeing a new type of company come up and really try to think, how can we make the user experience better so that they don't see us as the enemy but as a friend. And I think I'm learning a lot through that experience, and I'm really making analogies to what's happening with BetterHelp, and that's why I also really love what you guys are doing. And
I mean,
now,
any service that you provide value to the end user, that's amazing. We get every day, sometimes five, sometimes 10 these days, many more than that, emails from
yeah, I
people
see what
that
you're
tell us
sharing.
how
Yeah.
we change or saved their lives. This is really the big joy of coming to work here. A lot of companies try to bring value, but when you do that in such a direct way, when you actually change something very fundamental in someone's lives, that's really amazing, and that's what keeps us very motivated every day.
I mean, alone, you can literally fill up your whole wall with tweets of BetterHelp saved my life. I see that every day on Facebook.
Yeah.
That really, I don't see that about many companies. That term, something saved my life. Something made me happier. Something was tasty. Something helped me enjoy movies better. But something saved my life. I think that's pretty special. Now we're in April. We're hopefully soon at the peak of Corona. And how is this affecting BetterHelp? What's happening to the therapy world when now all therapists have to move online, basically?
Yeah, so we see several things happening. First of all, our existing members, the people that have been in therapy with us maybe for months and some of them even years, definitely use the service more, and we see that in the data. Our model, we didn't mention that, but our model is really the consumer is paying a flat fee, a monthly fee, and with that fee, they can interact with the counselors as much as they like over text and messages as they need, and they can have a weekly live session of a phone, video, or chat. So it's kind of a flexible model that lets you use the service more or less as you need without worrying on the financials of a specific session. So we see a lot of people just use the service more,
Right.
and we're very happy that we can help them this time. We also have an influx of a lot of new members. The number of new people that sign up with us and start therapy with us has doubled these February, March. I'm talking specifically about people with stress and anxiety, which are the things that are relevant to coronavirus, more than double than compared to February and March of last year. So that's also testament to uh, the great need. Um, Unlike maybe other verticals where you have a problem of demands spiking up, but supply cannot accommodate that, or you have more supply now than demand. In our case, specifically for this crisis, it actually played out pretty well because a lot more people need therapy, but also a lot of therapists are now available to provide more services. So we see, first of all, we see a lot more applications of therapists who want to work with us, but also the current therapists are opening their availability more because we have a lot of therapists who are not just doing BetterHelp, but also have a private practice, or they work in a school, or work in an agency, and of course now everything is very different.
Of course.
Yes, we have a lot more demand, but also supply uh, uh, improved significantly. So we're pretty in a good shape to accommodate the needs of both sides of the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, every second article that I read is about how tech startups are firing vehemently across the board, and then I go on Facebook and Alon Matas, we're hiring aggressively. Please refer to us.
I think over the last week we hired like 6 people, and
In a
we
company of
also
how
try.
many?
So say again.
In a company of how many people?
At BetterHelp we have around 70, or maybe now 75
So you increased by
people.
almost 10%.
Yeah, now everybody's talking percentage. Yeah, and we also try to make it convenient for the people who are impacted now. So, for example, one of the maybe bigger startups in Silicon Valley, I'm sure you know, made a kind of a mass layoff last week. We made a webinar a couple of days ago with a whole department that just got shut down, and offered all of them to start a fast track process, because we now and for me, I don't want to come across as someone taking advantage of the situation, but for us, always when you interview someone and they look great, and they have all the qualifications and everything, you always have in the back of your mind, okay, so what why did you leave your previous workplace, or why
Yep.
were you let go? And that's always kind of a sticking point. Like, I need to understand the story. Here it's actually very simple. Yes, the
Right.
entire department got shut down. It's a great startup, it's a great company. I even know the founders. So I said, awesome. Like, it's terrible, but there are now like 15 people looking for a job that the fact that they're looking for a job has nothing to do with their performance
Yep.
or their capabilities. It's just situational.
Interesting.
I kind of assume that they are top performers because they were in a top performing startup. So we'll still make an interview process, and we'll make some hiring process, but it's a much more fast track that we do with a lot more confidence, which
Yeah.
is a win-win situation.
So what's gonna happen a year from now? I'm looking at people having weddings over Zoom, funerals over Zoom, let alone so therapy. Obviously, what's gonna happen in a year with online relationships and communication?
Yeah, I just started planning my 11-year-old birthday over Zoom today. It's a challenge.
Well, good thing it's not a
I
bat mitzvah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
but
you have a
but it's
year.
still a birthday. I don't know. Like, I don't have a crystal ball. I think a lot of um, I I think that in this week, I don't know when this is going to be aired, but in this week, I think there is some kind of sudden realization that this is not a binary situation where we'll just, we're now shut down, and at the announcement of a moment, we'll go back to normal.
Right.
I think now people starting to realize that it's probably going to be a gradual process with a lot of checks and balances and ups and downs and pullbacks and restrictions. And that's actually opening up a lot of questions of how things are going to look like. I don't think face to face is doomed forever. I think we'll definitely go back to that, and that's great. I think online is one avenue, but there definitely should be the path of face to face for some people that feel more comfortable. Some type of issues are also best addressed with face to face. We also refer people in normal times. A pretty significant percent of people who sign up to BetterHelp, we tell them actually online counseling is not a great fit for you, for your situation, for maybe your severity. You should go face to face, and we provide referrals and resources. So it should definitely be back and should be back. But I think a lot of people, just like with web conferencing and doing meeting online and working remotely, we're forced to experience other things and find out that that's actually works pretty well or better than I expected. So I think if we prove that we can provide the quality of service that people expect and get in traditional formats, then it's definitely going to have a long-term impact on the adoption.
But are we doomed to go full virtual? So I'm thinking about my generation, the one after me. Um, I mean, if we look at it in 20 years, do you, I'm looking at you as an expert on virtual relationship, right? Virtual communication and therapy. You could suggest that it's one of the most intimate relationships that you could form with a person, let alone a professional. And you're showing that it's possible and can still be adequate while virtual. So, do you think that's where we're headed? Where at some point we're just gonna take it for granted that everything is virtual and doing this physically will be kind of weird and out of the norm?
20 years is a long, long time. You can look at what happened with retail.
Yeah.
Retailers definitely suffered a lot with the rise of online and Amazon and e-retailers, but it still exists, in still a huge portion of commerce is done in physical retail. Um, I think we're always going to have both. Maybe not in the same proportion we have now, and of course it's up to us to prove that it works. And now, when we started 6 years ago, it was a theory, and then we started getting feedback from users and counselors, but it was always kind of this really how the same clinical outcomes. And over the last couple of years, more and more studies and more research started to come specifically for online counseling, even more specifically about BetterHelp, with some studies that showed that for some areas, for example, depression, the very clinical outcomes, not how people feel, not what people say,
Yeah.
but the way you can measure their depression symptoms, the improvement and reduction in these symptoms is similar in online counseling with a platform like BetterHelp
Wow.
compared to traditional counseling. So as this get more acceptable by people and more backed by research, that's definitely going to help the shift. But I'm not. I don't think I can actually predict what happens 20 years from now. But I don't think we're going to be 100% virtual,
Yeah.
even in this time frame.
Alon, before we end, three words that describe you.
Wow. Ah,
That's the
should have
reaction.
prepared.
Yeah,
You
I've
should
been
have
getting that.
prepared me for that.
But then I wouldn't get that
Um,
reaction.
Three words. It has to be three adjectives or
Oof. Whatever you come up with. It's not a
um,
commitment. Three words that you feel now.
trying my best.
Love it. I might adopt that. I really like it. Alon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It was a
Good
lot of
luck.
fun. Bye bye.
Bye.